Thank you to Ninis and to Perludem for inviting us, inviting Lente to talk about our work back in the Philippines and to share our experiences on monitoring as well as advocating our government, more specifically our election management body, to address the problem of ASR or abuse of state resources in elections. But for my presentation this morning, my presentation will have two major components. I'm actually setting my timer because I tend to speak a lot, as my friends would know back home. So I need to limit my presentation to 40 minutes. So I'm working on my timer now. Okay. So for this morning, my presentation will have two major components. I know I need to present on ASR, but I also want to share our effort and our learnings through the years on pushing for electoral reform before our parliament and before our election management body. So that's the first major component of my presentation this morning. I would want to share on our experiences in pursuing electoral reform. Then the second major component is on our work in addressing and monitoring ASR, because to be honest about it, we're fairly new in monitoring ASR as well in the country, in the Philippines. We've started to monitor ASR or abuse of state resources in our 2022 national and local elections. So we will learn from each other. We will not claim to be experts in monitoring and pushing for reforms to address ASR in the Philippines. So hopefully we can have a discussion, a lively discussion after my presentation, which will end in 38 minutes. Okay. Okay, so again, I'm from Lente. Lente stands for Legal Network for Truthful Elections. Next slide. There's a clicker. Okay, thank you. Next slide, Ona. There's a clicker. Okay. So Lente, it stands for Legal Network for Truthful Elections. From the name itself, we are a legal organization. So Lente is composed of lawyers, law students, paralegals, and other trained volunteers, or as we call them, paralegals, to monitor elections in the Philippines. We are a fairly young organization compared to other election monitoring organizations in the Philippines like NAMFREL or PPCRV, whereas we were established in 2007, just before, 3 years before we first fully automated our elections in 2010. So as some of you might have known, or might know, we've been using machines in our elections for 14 years already. So we've been using machines for 6 or 7 major elections in the country. And we are an election monitoring organization, so just like BERSI, like Perludem, we are engaged in the usual election monitoring organization activities like public education, networking and partnership, lobbying and advocacy, but we've always claimed that ever since we adopted this development entrepreneurship approach in pursuing electoral reform, we've always claimed to also be an electoral reform organization back in the Philippines. Next slide, Anna. So this is what we do. Because we are a legal organization, and the Philippines, as you know, has a very vibrant civil society organization, especially election monitoring organizations. But what we've realized and recognized through the years of working in the space is people know how to vote. They know how to shade the circle beside the name of the candidate. They know the values to look out for in candidates. But the vacuum or the limitation in the knowledge of our of Filipinos in elections is their knowledge on election laws. Going back to Nini's question earlier on how to simplify our work, because sometimes it gets too technical, like Risa, like Cochin said earlier, it gets too technical. So what we do in Lente is to simplify election laws. People don't like to learn about election laws. Is that your experience here as well in Indonesia? People don't like boring stuff. Is that correct? They don't like boring stuff. So part of our work in Lente is to simplify the law, to simplify what's boring in our elections, and make it more understandable and palatable to the people. Of course, we monitor the elections, but we always say to our audience that election monitoring is not a one-day event. It's not just monitoring election day. Election monitoring is monitoring the 3 stages of the electoral cycle: pre-election, election, and post-election. And a lot of people would always ask us, and most probably this question is also asked to Bercy and Perludem, what do you do in between elections? You're not doing anything in between elections, right? But we always tell our friends that most of the work that we do is actually happening in between elections and not just election day. So we monitor the elections, but we try as much as possible to monitor all the stages of the electoral cycle. We are not a big organization like Bercy or Perludem. We are a smaller organization, but to maximize, to amplify our efforts, we partner with like-minded organizations and like-minded individuals. Basically, our criteria is every partner should be non-partisan or not supporting any candidate or political party. And lastly, we conduct purposive and systematic monitoring. Being a small organization, we really can't do it all. Like Pikachu, you can't catch them all like Pikachu. So Lente, being a small organization, we do purposive and systematic monitoring. So for example, in every election, we monitor the accessibility of elections. That has always been one of the corner work or cornerstone work of Lente in the Philippine elections, monitor accessibility of elections. We started monitoring ASR in the 2022 national and local elections and our village elections as well. We monitor how our election management body, or COMELEC, or Commission on Elections, implement election-related laws in furtherance of their mandate in the Constitution or our primary law to hold the election. So this is what we do in Lente. Okay, and this is our network. I started out with basically explaining Lente as a legal network. So our base of operations are law school chapters all over the country. So as you can see at the left side of this slide, these are our law school chapters. So we want to get future lawyers to be volunteers of Lente so that before they're part of the legal organization formally, we imbibe them with the values and principles that we feel that they need once they become lawyers in the country. And I don't know if this is the same feeling in Indonesia and in Malaysia, but in the Philippines, one of the major problems is political dynasties. Yes, we have elections, and in the ANFRA report, they describe Philippine elections as vibrant. But one of the major problems in Philippine elections, honestly, for the past 10 years is the lack of competitiveness. The same faces, not my face, the same faces, the same names, run in Philippine elections. And as much as we conduct public education activities, as much as we push our people to vote for the right people, for the right candidates, if our people just see the same faces and the same names every election cycle, every 3 years, then basically nothing would happen and nothing would change in Philippine politics and Philippine elections. So we started also venturing in youth political participation work because we realized that nothing would change. Our work would not matter if in 10 years from now or in 2 decades after we start, 2 decades into what we're doing, we'll still see the same names and faces. So we started also building youth coalitions all over the country to somehow, encourage more young people to take part in engaging more closely with the government, especially the local government unit, and hopefully encouraging them to run in Philippine elections. I don't know if this is the same case in Indonesia and in Malaysia, but in the Philippines, there was a nationwide survey, and young people were asked if they are interested to run in Philippine elections. And you know the answer to that question? Does anybody want to guess the answer to that question in the survey? If Filipino young voters or Filipino youth would want to run in elections or in politics? The answer to that question that question in the survey is almost 75% of young Filipinos do not want to run in Philippine elections. Actually, they do not want to engage with the Philippine government, with Philippine politics. They're allergic to working in the space because they feel that that's not me, that's not my life. some people are used to that life, but 75% of young Filipinos do not consider themselves as politically active or will not see themselves as engaging in the space. So I think that's actually the common problem in the three countries that are present in this session and yesterday, because we are really talking amongst the crowd. We are preaching in the choir, but just like the question posed by Ninis, again, how do we reach out to people outside of our circles, outside of our spaces? So that's one of the evolution of Lente. From being a pure election monitoring organization, we've ventured somehow slowly into actually also building future leaders, hopefully future leaders that we could count on or that we can see in Philippine politics 10 or 15 years from now. And unlike other NGOs in the Philippines, if you talk to NGOs or non-governmental organizations in the Philippines, because of what happened during the Marcos time, the first Marcos presidency, martial law, if you talk to a lot of, especially the old NGOs or the old non-governmental organizations, when you ask them how do you like working with the government, most of the time they would answer that they don't like working with the government. They feel that it's dirty to work with the government. And that's the usual actually sentiment or the attitude of non-governmental organizations. It's dirty to work with the government. It's okay to remain in our space, but if you work closely with the government, are you being part of the government and are you becoming a dirty non-governmental organization? And I think that's also one of the problems in Philippine civil society space, in the Philippine civil society space, because a lot of NGOs are doing good work in the Philippines, but because they limit themselves to just working in their space and not working closely with the government, their good ideas are not translated to policies and programs of the government. So, later we work closely with our government, especially our election management body and our parliament, because of our electoral reform work. So, and we also work with other government agencies, like for example, we're pushing for better transparency in government. So we're working with the Freedom of Information Office. We're working with OGP, Open Government Partnership, because we're pushing for transparency. And to get more transparency in government, you need to work with these government agencies. We're also looking at elections from a human rights perspective. So we're working again closely with our National Human Rights Institution or our Commission on Human Rights. We're also working on governance at the local level. So we're also working with our Ministry on Interior and Local Governance. So in relation to all our aspects of our work in Lente, we'll always identify counterpart government agency that we could work with to further our cause, to make our work more effective. And for everyone's information, the BARM region, I don't know if you're familiar with the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao, it transitioned to a parliamentary system of government, and we're working closely with this transition government because they will be having their first parliamentary elections supposedly next year, but our parliament is again postponing their parliamentary elections next year. But we're working closely with this parliament to work on their Bangsamoro electoral code, because they have their own electoral code, because they have a parliamentary elections different from the presidential elections. But I'll talk about that work more later. Okay. Who is that handsome face in the slide? As everyone knows, he is Duterte? No. Who is this person? Of course, Manny Pacquiao. When I go to countries, not only in Asia, but actually in Europe or in, for example, in America, most of the time people would ask me, how is Manny Pacquiao? So I think Pacquiao is the most famous Filipino all over the world. That's why I inserted his picture in the slide. So just to give a bit of a background about the Philippines, we have a presidential form of government. We have 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judiciary. We have constitutional commissions, so they're not part of the 3 branches of government, so they're independent. So part of the constitutional commissions in our primary law or our constitution is the Commission on Elections, or our election management body. So we call it COMELEC. The Filipinos, we love initials. That's why we have COMELEC, we have LENTE. It always stands for something. So COMELEC, it stands for Commission on Elections. We also have one autonomous region in the country, and I mentioned this earlier, it's BARM, or the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. So that's Duterte, no, that's Pacquiao. So don't forget the face of Pacquiao. He's running again for our parliament. He's running again for Senate in the Philippines. Okay, so just to share, electoral reform to us before was just like attending hearings, submitting our positions. Whenever there's an electoral issue in the Philippines, that's how we do electoral reform before. This is electoral reform for us. Submit position papers, attend hearings. And most of the time, this is the policy reform of most NGOs or CSOs in the Philippines. But for us now, electoral reform is going beyond attending hearings, the formal hearings in Parliament, submitting position papers, because part of doing electoral reform is actually doing the dirty work. Meeting them where they are, meeting them outside of the halls of the Parliament, talking to them where they are located, and basically doing their work. What do I mean when I say doing their work? When we do electoral reform in Lente, we will always have draft bills, draft EMB resolutions, because we feel that if we will just be submitting position papers, most of the time they will always tell us, we have lots of work to do. But we will consider your suggestion. But most of the time when they say that, they will not consider our suggestion. Is that correct? Most of the time. So, right now, when we do electoral reform, when we say doing electoral reform in Lente, it means that we have a draft bill, we have a draft resolution. So that's how we do electoral reform. But before we arrive in that draft bill or draft resolution, we do all of these meetings. We do all of the FGDs, SGDs, HGDs, whatever GDs that you can think of. We do all of that. Because that's part of our work as well as CSO. We need to be as inclusive as possible, as consultative as possible. So we do all those kinds of group discussion to arrive at the draft bill and the draft resolution. You might be wondering, we are a dictatorship in Lente, but we are not. Well, I'll tell you more about the process on how we arrive at a draft bill or a draft resolution. But if you take a look at that picture at the right slide, that was me 10 years ago. A thinner version of Ona 10 years ago. So that was me talking to our ally in Parliament, talking to our champion in Parliament about a bill that we were pushing for poll workers in the elections. And we were strategizing. I just want to share the story of this picture. This picture.
Yeah.
There.
You can point it.
You know, Lente is poorer than Perluden. We don't have a pointer like this. Di ba, Brisa? We have a human pointer. Next slide. We don't have a pointer like this. Ladies will get angry at me. Okay. Okay. So, at this picture, let me just tell you a quick story about this picture. When we were pushing for a bill for poll workers, there was one parliament member who was continuously opposing the passage of this bill. So we were talking to this member of parliament. We were strategizing. How can we remove this so-and-so person out of the picture so that our bill would be finally heard at our House of Representatives? So what our parliament member champion did was, okay, let's do this. When he goes to the toilet or to the comfort room, that's our sign to call the bill for voting. And lo and behold, thank God for toilet gods. This parliament member went to the toilet, and this was the time our champion, our ally in Congress, asked the person in charge of voting that, okay, let's hear the bill now. So our bill, fortunately, was able to hurdle that stumbling block because that person went to the toilet. So, you can't do that when you don't have allies or champions in Congress, when you don't have connections. Because when you just have formal connections, they will always just say, okay, noted, we already received your position paper. But if you don't have any personal connection or that rapport or relationship with your champions or allies, most especially in Parliament, you can't talk about strategies like that. Strategies outside of the rules, strategies outside of the playbook. Okay, hearings, meetings anywhere, FGDs, SGDs, never-ending statements. So our formula for pushing for reform basically is, we have universe of reforms, but we always use this formula. It should be technically sound, so it should be well researched, but at the same time, although it's technically sound, and NGOs like us, we do good work. We produce technically sound proposals, but at the end of the day, if the proposal is not politically feasible, it will not be acceptable to our members of Parliament, to our election management body. No matter how good our proposal is, how perfect it is, how it would change the elections or the politics in the country, it would not see the light of day. Why do I emphasize that? The political feasibility criteria, because most of the time, NGOs like us, we operate in, this is a good proposal. They should accept this proposal. There's no reason for them not to accept this proposal. But remember, we're not the only constituents of these members of Parliament. Our interest is not only the interest that they have in mind. So, whenever you pursue reform, I think you should always consider, we get this, we're used to this. Produce technically sound proposals or recommendations, but you should also consider if the reform is politically feasible. Okay, so how is a reform technically sound? Are you familiar with this person, with this cartoon character? This will tell your age if you're familiar with this cartoon character. Who is this cartoon character? Goku. So Goku was a cartoon character, early 90s, mid 90s. So I think you were the same generation. You're not agreeing that we're the same generation, huh? No. Okay. So how is a reform technically sound? So first, it needs to be transformative. So it needs to affect not just one component, for example, of the elections in your country. It needs to affect as much as possible all the components of the elections in the country. So it needs to be transformative. So it needs to be Son Goku, from a Saiyan to a Super Saiyan. And it needs to be institutionalized. So most of the time when we talk about reform, you need it to be part of the legal framework or part of the resolutions or policies of your election management body, because that's the only way that we are assured that the reform that we've worked on for a long time would still be part of the legal framework in the next election cycle. So it needs to be institutionalized, whether in a new law or a revision of an old law, or through the policies or resolutions of the government agency that we are working with. And lastly, it needs to be scaled up. So just like what I mentioned earlier, it should not just be implemented by one government agency. It should be implemented by the whole government or in the whole country, for example, to define scale. So, and how is a reform politically feasible? I think this is the hardest when you talk about reform. It's technical work, again, we're used to that. But for a reform to be politically feasible, we always describe it as when the stars align. Yan. Why do I say that a reform to be politically feasible, the stars should align? Because most of the time when we do reform work, it's not acceptable to our parliament. But sometimes, big rallies happen. Revolutions like in Bangladesh happen, and that there's that space or that once in a lifetime opportunity that groups like us can introduce reform in the space. That's what I mean, and that's what we mean in Lente when we say that reform is politically feasible when the stars align. So we just need to be ready about it. our reform may not be accepted now, but maybe something would happen in the next few years that the reform would be politically feasible or acceptable now to the parliament if the parliament composition change or the composition of the election management body. I just want to share on the reform that I was talking about earlier. You know, this reform, this has always been perennially filed in our parliament. The Election Service Reform Act. It started to be filed 2000. And every 3 years we have a new parliament. So 2004, 2003, 2006, it has always been filed. So it's a pet bill of some members of our parliament, but it has never seen the light of day. It has never been passed into law. But when we started working on ESTRA 2013, or 13 years after it was originally passed in our parliament, fortunately for us, the stars aligned. Some members of our parliament, our election management body, finally said yes to opening up the space to other members of society aside from public school teachers. So we managed to get this win, the passage of this bill into law 3 years after we started working on it. Okay. So that's how we define how a reform is politically feasible. Let me skip VSO and the barn because I only have 3 minutes left. Okay. So let me just talk about ASR, or our work in abuse of state resources monitoring. Just like what I mentioned earlier, this is not old work for us. We started just working on this problem 2022. And what we did in the 2022 national and local elections is basically get the lay of the land. Because just like vote buying, ASR is an accepted problem in Philippine elections. People, when we ask them what they think about ASR, they would always tell us that, you know, it's advantage of the incumbent. That's part of Philippine politics and elections, that you're lucky that you're an incumbent. So you get to use the resources of the government. You get to use the personnel of the government for your personal campaign. So that was the landscape when we started monitoring the 2022 elections. And if you Google actually ASR, Philippine elections, there's not much literature on it. Please, cooperate with me. Get your phone. You have internet access, right? You have load. You have internet. So please Google ASR, Philippine elections. I just want to show everyone how the landscape was in Philippines before we started working on this problem. If you Google ASR, Philippine elections, you can only see Philip Lente. So that was the lay of the land when we started working on the space. Nobody was working on it. There was no literature actually present when we started working on the ASR problem. So what we did was deploy long-term observers before the start of the campaign period for our local candidates for 3 months. We deployed at the start of the campaign period and a month after the election day ended. So we monitored the effect of elections and ASR after elections. And what we saw after the 2022 national elections was people did not care much about the problem. So from that finding was in our second reiteration or second monitoring of ASR in our village elections last year, part of our goal was to make people care more about the problem. Make people more aware that it's not part of elections, that we should not accept it as just part of elections, that it is a problem, and it is an election offense, actually. It is a crime in our legal framework. It's unfortunately not a lot of people are talking about it as a crime because it has been accepted as part of Philippine politics and elections. So if you can take a look at this triangle, this is our work since 2022. We will advocate for people to care more about the problem, for our election management body to care more about the problem, but we will monitor. And in our monitoring, it will feed into our policy work. So we've worked on policy since 2022 on how to better address this problem of ASR in Philippine elections. And okay. So how did we monitor ASR for the 2023 village elections? So we had different reporting mechanisms. We had an accountability reporting portal. If you check out the website of Lente, we have an accountability reporting portal. Our monitors, our observers can submit their reports, and at the same time, the general public can submit their reports on ASR. We also made use of our Lente email as a reporting platform, our social media pages, and our hotlines. But on election day and pre-election, post-elections, what our monitors used was Kobo. That was the tool that we use for our monitors, that they can report their ASR monitoring and their interviews as well with identified stakeholders. We also made use of our existing pro forma affidavit. If ever a person would like to make a report or would like to make a complaint before our election management body or our security forces. And these are the types of reports that we receive in these different portals. Most of the time, we receive general reports of like campaigning, of this so-and-so person campaigning. But in relation to ASR, or Abuse of State Resources, these were the reports that we receive in these portals. Epal Watch, or basically bansos, of candidates making use of the distribution of social welfare programs and them being present in the distribution of the social welfare programs. So we receive reports like that. We also receive LGU intervention, meaning LGUs are making use of government infrastructure like village halls for their campaigns, making use of government resources like their printers, making use of government personnel for their campaign. And for the village activities, this is also basically making use of the different government resources for their electoral advantage. So these were the different reports that we received through these portals. These portals, and these are the reports. And just for everyone's information, let's like what I mentioned earlier, we have an old election code in the Philippines. It's 1985. It's a 1985 law. So it's an older law. It's an old law. It's older than our 1987 Constitution. But since 1985, ASR has always been an offense in our legal framework. For example, it's prohibited to release, disperse, or expend public funds during a specific period, during the 2 weeks before the election day. It's prohibited to construct roads during the campaign period. It's prohibited to use public funds for government or election campaign. And of course, it's prohibited to engage in vote buying and vote selling. So what am I saying? Is that ASR has always been a problem and recognized in our legal framework. But because of the attitude of people, the attitude of candidates, the attitude of our election management body, that it's part of Philippine politics and part of Philippine elections, people will just say to us, is it a problem? That's why we're really happy that we started working on ASR, because it basically actually reignited our interest to also address this problem of vote buying and vote selling. So these are the ASR reports that we receive for vote buying, vote selling. And for LGU intervention, it's 173 out of the 127 out of the 127 reports. You'll get a copy of this presentation. Don't worry. And in the village elections, what's good with our election management body is they're innovative, because they also know and they recognize that vote buying is a big problem and it's hard to prosecute. So what our election management body did in the last village elections is to create assumptions. Meaning, it's not the problem of our election management body that to prove that you're guilty of vote buying. If you're caught, violating, or if you're caught doing this presumed acts of vote buying and vote selling, it now becomes your responsibility to prove that you're not engaged in vote buying and vote selling. So the number one problem in addressing vote buying and vote selling was transferred to the accused or to the one caught doing this presumed acts of vote buying and vote selling. For example, this is a presumed act. If you're distributing to students during the campaign period, and a local village official was present during this campaign distribution. So, what COMELEC did was to make prosecution easier. And that's an innovation that our election management body, good for them, that they managed to do, despite the complaints or the opposition coming, of course, from the candidates and the politicians themselves. Okay, so distributing national government program, but they're distributing it as their own. As you can see, these are boxes of our Ministry of Social Welfare and Development. But these boxes were distributed during the campaign sortie of a local candidate. Bansos, basically, Bansos. As you can see, this is a campaign t-shirt of a local candidate, and part of the distribution is the vitamins, the medicines. So the medicines and vitamins were distributed together with the campaign t-shirt of a local candidate. Okay. So COMELEC had this committee on Contrabigay. This was to address vote buying in the Philippines. This was the committee that they created to better address the problem of vote buying in the Philippines. And their modality to better address it is to have a three-pronged approach, or as they say, it's a whole-of-nation approach. That's our favorite, I think, term now for NGOs, whole-of-nation. But our government, our election management body also used the whole-of-nation approach, because they also identified that prosecution is not the only way to solve vote buying. Enforcement is also a way to police the candidates, to warn candidates that they will be disqualified if they use bansos or if they use government resources. And they also engage in a big campaign to better educate the people that vote buying is a problem and it's a crime and they should not engage in vote buying and vote selling. And this is ASR. And what we are doing right now, because we work with this committee, is we want them to integrate ASR in their committee on Contrabigay. We want them to include ASR, or abuse of state resources, in their monitoring of vote buying and vote selling. So what we did is to basically give our COMELEC a revised resolution to include the definition of ASR, presumptions of ASR, and to create a committee on vote buying and ASR. So that's our proposal right now to COMELEC. And we've submitted our reports to COMELEC. This is the commissioner in charge of the Committee on Contrabigay. We've submitted our reports to them and our findings in our last monitoring of ASR in the village elections. We've also included in the proposed resolution additional government agencies that are part of that should be part of monitoring, like our Ministry of Social Welfare and Development, the Ombudsman, the one filing cases against politicians for graft cases. So we included them to be part of the committee on Contrabigay against vote selling, vote buying. Okay. And I just want to end with the good news, because this is good news last night only. Because a big problem right now in the Philippines, and I will end with this, sorry to the Secretary of Perludem. The big problem right now in the Philippines, we have an elections next year. It's an election year next year. And what our parliament did was to transfer billions of pesos and to members of parliament for welfare distribution. So what they did was to decrease the budget of our Ministry of Social Welfare and Development and transfer the budget to the parliament members. So these parliament members can distribute their own social welfare program. So basically, it's, preparing for the elections. Basically, them having resources to distribute to their potential voters. And this is a good, development for us because it's an ongoing problem in the Philippines right now. And our COMELEC chairperson, our EMB Chairperson Garcia, said that they will closely monitor government agencies exempted from spending ban because they feel that it can be used for ASR. And I just want you to take a look at this paragraph in this press conference of our election chairperson. We have a Contra Bigay committee, and we want to look into the abuse of state resources because the government funds should not be used for own interests. Remember when I asked you to Google ASR and Philippine elections? 2022, it just started appearing 2022, and Lente. Somehow, we've managed to convince and inception it in the minds of our Commission on Elections to also use ASR. For them to better address the problem of ASR, not only vote buying, because the Contra Bigay was created just for vote buying, but somehow we managed to convince them that include ASR as well, because it's a big problem, just like vote buying in Philippine elections. So that's how we did our ASR work. It's not easy, and it's not overnight. We started working on it 2022. Hopefully, we'll see the draft resolution, the revised resolution next month, and we'll be happy to share this revised resolution if we get it next month. The commitment of our election management bodies, they will release this revised resolution on Committee on Contra Bigay and ASR next month to finish with the budget cycle. And if we get it, we'll be happy to share this revised resolution with everyone so that we can all learn from each other on how to better address this problem of ASR in our elections. That's it. I would end with that because my time is up. Thank you very much.